next up, we have a conversation about the evolution of media optimization within the agencies. Now, obviously, the agencies seem to have taken an awful beating recently about transparency and the trading models, etc. Particularly in the US, they seem to be absolutely obsessed about margins and transparency. We're not so obsessed about that in Europe because that's how we make money. So I want to call to the stage Marco Bertozzi and Brian Lesser from Xaxis and Viviki, and give a round of applause for both, please. Thank you, gentlemen.
Pleasure.
Yeah, grab some water there. Looks like a nasty injury there, Brian. Were you in a fist fight? Yeah. Okay. So, gentlemen, thanks for coming along today. I want this conversation to be fairly progressive. There's a lot of a lot of panels I've seen recently just skewering sort of the trading models within the agencies themselves, which I think is kind of a little bit backward and not really helping the conversation. So the conversations around today is about how are agencies developing their trading models and evolving media optimization within the actual agency structures themselves. So Mark, we'll start with you. Let's talk about the evolution of the trading desk. How is the agency evolving that model? How is it, obviously started off as a line item, but now it's becoming a little bit more consultative, a bit more sort of, bigger hooks into different agencies within the holding group. So I'd just like to talk about the evolution of that trading model, particularly from your perspective.
I mean, we started back in 2008. It was very much let's build something at the center. And at the time, I think there's probably a handful of people in 2008 that were thinking about programmatic media and ad exchanges and so on. So at the time, we were sort of getting ahead of and learning lessons from the past. I think in the past, in big agency groups, we've had every agency go off and create an offering, which likely would involve, a lot of duplication of work. So I think the idea with the programmatic space back then was, let's create something at the center, let's do it once, let's incubate that for however long. I mean, I don't think there was a sort of a definitive time to that, but with a view that ultimately this was going to then, as I've sort of likened it to kind of dropping my 4-year-old off first day at school, it kind of feels like, you've got, this stuff can't be just held centrally. So, more recently, we've seen some sort of restructures in our group where the core elements of digital trading, the group trading of Viviki Exchange, our work within Viviki, audience on demand, and so on, being combined with the works of the big agencies. So that's really the management board, with a view to now looking at this as a holistic group approach. And, there's no way that you can just hold all this knowledge at the center. And we've set our business up to be, to answer to more maybe to the agencies. And so that's the sort of road we're on now.
Brian, I mean, you don't like being called a trading desk effectively. You see yourself more of a consultative layer within the organization.
No, we absolutely don't see ourselves as a consultative layer. We see ourselves as a media company. So, I think it's actually, to echo some of the things that Marco said, we started up a business in 2007 called the Media Innovation Group. And the mission of that organization was, I think, similar to what Marco described, which is we wanted to build a discipline in the center, and that was a programmatic discipline, and effectively a trading desk. But the vision was always, we can't build that discipline in the center if we all believe that programmatic will be the way all media is traded in the future. And I think, I certainly believe that. So in 2011, we founded Xaxis. And, to be clear, I call Xaxis a programmatic media company, and we still do some, trading desk activities. But the mission and the vision for Xaxis was never to be a trading desk. It was to be a media company. Because I think that the evolution of how the agencies participate in this innovation and new business models is twofold. One is the trading desk has to go back into the agencies. There's no doubt about that. If, in our case, Mediacom, Mindshare, MEC, Maxis, if they are to remain relevant and consultative to their clients, they're going to have to be programmatic experts, right? So eventually that will happen, and within Group M, they're undertaking that initiative. On the other side, we think at WPP that it's important that we also provide a media products company. So think of it as eventually Mediacom runs a trading desk on behalf of their client, and they buy lots of programmatic media products from the marketplace. That may be from Facebook, that may be from Google, that may be from Yahoo, whatever. One set of products is from Xaxis. And so we, over time, build up products that are programmatic in nature, leveraging our trading relationships, leveraging our data, leveraging our people. And then the media agency owns the programmatic media plan, and we end up as a line item on that plan. So that's how we see things evolving over time.
So you add in value by aggregating, overlaying data, and leveraging the technology for your agencies within WPP.
Yes. So it's the difference between I'm a client and I say, listen, I need help with programmatic, and I have $10 million to spend on programmatic, and I want help placing bets, operating a DSP, operating a DMP. I think that's what a trading desk does. And I think that's what agencies eventually do, I think most of what an agency does from a buying standpoint will be trade desk-like. Within Xaxis, we go out into the market, we have trading deals with publishers, we aggregate data, we put together products like Xaxis TV, like Xaxis Out of Home, like Xaxis Prime, which are a combination of data, inventory, people, technology, and we offer those products as competitive to the other products in the marketplace.
Would that be sort of a managed optimization service, or is it a case of like there's options you can have a managed optimization service, or you plug into your products to actually let the trading? Right. Okay.
Both. Okay. So several options. One is we can fully manage it. Two is it can simply be a line on a programmatic media plan. And three is if a client is running their own DSP, and I know we'll talk about that, it can be a source of inventory or programmatic products within that DSP, regardless of what that DSP is.
Okay. So, Marco, your holding company has made a number of investments and acquisitions over the last 2 months. 25% of Matomi, an Israeli ad network, a mobile DMP, DSP run, and now you've bought Sapient. I'm just wondering around sort of the partnerships and building technology. I mean, what from your perspective, is it sort of, is it in your interest to acquire technology or partner? I mean, what's your sort of ethos around this? And what should have, I mean, you obviously have a big say in the shaping of this, but how do you sort of approach this? So
we're focused on, and how it gets shaped out and named will evolve, I think, but we're focused on this idea of, I was trying to work out when Brian was talking whether it was similar or not, but the idea is, I think we're looking for each of the agency groups, each of the agencies themselves within the group to develop these skill sets, right? And we need to move away from really just buying a schedule to looking at it as all this media coming through and powered by technology. And then with VVK at the center, and indeed the wider sort of publicity group being at the center and helping each of those agencies power that solution. And avoid the repetition and avoid the each of them doing the same work over and over. So we sort of see whether it's SMG's relationship with Run, Sapient is obviously very new. There's not much to say on that, but the involvement of Sapient in the group, our existing infrastructure that we have around data warehousing and so on, our deal with Adobe, all these things are really going to be a platform at the center for publicists, that our ambition will be to join these pieces up to help power each of the agencies. So it's not about there's going to be one single platform, but the announcement around Adobe of the Always On, the idea of that is to, I think in some respects, advertisers are better than us at joining up their various technologies, right? Because they've got their ad tech stuff and they've got their marketing tech stuff. And the idea with the Adobe thing is to go, well, hold on. So some of our big clients, they might be working with Digitas creatively. They might be working with AOD from from a sort of programmatic perspective, they might be working with Lear Burnett's, Starcom MediaVest, and so on. So the idea is to go that, in some respects, the AOD part of this is, just one element of how we should be talking to advertisers now and saying, use something that joins up all these dots. Because I think the big gap within programmatic and the letdown within programmatic right now is the creativity side of it and the content side of it. And somehow we need to join those things up. So, I see these, you're going to see loads more of these announcements, whether it's from WPP or from publicists. There's no way now that these, as large groups who all have stated ambitions to grow their digital revenues and so on, we have to invest in these companies. And bizarrely, much as, lots talked about WPP and publicists, and our relevant bosses like to have public spats about it, the competition is probably more in this room than it is sat next to me in some respects. So, we have to tool up to be able to compete with all the ad tech companies out there who are, under some pressure to grow their revenues. In many cases, they're going direct to clients to do that. So, there's a number of things at play.
Brian, obviously you've got a sort of deep relationship with Nexus and other companies, and you've made a number of acquisitions yourself: Banner Connect, Crystal Semantics, Plista. I mean, what value do those acquisitions make to you? I mean, is it the case that the core technology, the pipes essentially, is such a huge investment that you have to add value by building around the pipes, effectively like building on the API, essentially?
Yeah, no, that's right. And I think that you covered it a bit in your conversation with Michael. But WPP, a bit of history, bought 24/7 Real Media in 2007. And that was a very big deal. And 2007, as you may remember, was sort of a big deal in the industry because Microsoft bought Quantive, Google bought DoubleClick. There are lots of things that happened. So, I think over time, our strategy has always been, we do believe agencies can build technology, and we do believe that agencies should build technology to give clients a competitive advantage. That's a fairly broad strategy. The other part of that strategy is we think working with partners is significant and important to building out a technology stack. However, within that, things change. So at the beginning, ad serving was extremely important to us. We had a publisher ad server and Open Ad Stream. That was a link for us to inventory and to data. It was very important in building our supply side strategy. Over time, we've built a DSP. Over time, we've built a DMP. But the industry changes. And I think the deal with AppNexus was consistent with our initial strategy, which is we want to build the things that give our clients competitive advantage, and we want to partner on everything else. So we decided that publisher ad serving was more important to AppNexus than it was to us. We maintain trading relationships with publishers. We maintain data relationships with publishers. But the technology itself is in better hands with AppNexus, more strategic to them than it is to us. However, we maintain about 200 software engineers, data scientists, product managers that are building our DMP. So we launched Turbine earlier this year in the spring. That is 100% proprietary to us. It is
encapsulated into the Xaxis proposition, though.
That is part of Xaxis. That's not a Group M proposition. That's a Xaxis proposition. So the deal with AppNexus was significant. The other thing I would say is, in relation to something Marco said is, I think from 2007 to now was sort of like the first half inning of a extra innings game. By the way, that's a baseball analogy.
I know. I've been watching the World Series. I've been watching the World Series. I get it.
But what you're seeing now is that sort of like it's Napoleon observing the battlefield, right? Napoleon never acted until he actually saw.
Right.
No. Bear with me for a moment. Napoleon never sort of acted until he actually see where his opponent was lining up, how they were attacking the problem. And I think now you're actually seeing lots of companies make moves, right? And so I do think 2014 is a game-changing year. You see Publicis making some acquisitions, our deal with AppNexus, Facebook relaunched Atlas, Google's getting very, very aggressive in linking their spend goals with their technology, so they're being even more overt about connecting media and technology. You see Omnicom making statements around them building a media business and a supply business in addition to an agency business. So I do think that things are changing, major players are aligning, and people are starting to choose sides. I'm not saying that everybody's got the best strategy. We like our strategy, but certainly nobody's sitting back anymore saying, we're just going to let it happen and observe. People are actually making moves. And the other result of that is if you are a company in this space, whether you're a big player or a small player, if you don't have a strategy to align with a bigger platform to generate some scale, I think you're going to find it very difficult over the next 18 months to 2 years.
Because it's quite difficult to take all that capital and build something out initially, because it takes years to develop an engineering talent, etc. So, your value, this touches on the question, but is your value then specifically around data, building data segments, building prop data, building solutions infrastructure, Marco? Is that how you can add real value? And obviously inventory is going to be controlled by a lot of potential competitors, media companies particularly, but is the value for you building those data propositions? Is that the key thing for you?
Yeah, I mean, there's still, just quickly on the inventory, I still think, inventory straight data, we've talked a lot, and I know you're going to talk about the sort of advertiser side of this, but, and you talked about scale earlier, that isn't just important from a price perspective, it's also about making sure that these big media companies are at least coming under some pressure from a unified group of people to act in a certain fashion. So, I was with a colleague of Brian's, I was at the ANA event, the advertiser event last week, and, there's all these concerns about walled gardens that we've touched a bit with Laurie today. And, you still need the power of agency groups and so on to be able to put pressure on some of these tech partners, whether it's Google, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, or anyone else, to try and make sure that at the heart of it, advertisers still have a say in how their money is being spent. So I think that centralization and that scale is really important. And then on top of that, back to your data point, yeah, I mean, again, similar but slightly different strategies. We've not tried to build in the DMP space, in the DSP space. Our view has always been that we would rather build technology that links them up, right, and makes the best of them and makes them interoperable, but ultimately platforms that bring all that data together, and that's really been the focus, continues to be the focus. But regardless of which angle you're coming at this, whether it's creating bespoke audience data, whether it's literally joining up pipes, this is really, it requires a lot of investment, it requires a lot of expertise, and I feel like, as I said at this advertiser event the other day, I'm like, we're getting distracted, really hugely distracted by this transparency debate. So I was basically saying, because of transparency, advertisers are running off and saying, we better do it ourselves, right? But it's like, you want to be careful doing that because I was just going to ask about pretty intense.
Yeah, I was about to ask that because obviously in-housing, I'll put that in inverted commas because it's such a weird grey term. It seems to be a big subject here in the US, not so much in Europe or Asia, but do you think that, given the complexity of what's going on, particularly with walled gardens, you might have like 6 or 7 different bidders that you have to actually activate or stitch together. Does that mean that ultimately that some of these guys some of the advertisers taking it in-house will go back to the agency at some stage because of the complexity and the resource and the investment required? Like if you're making bars of soap or chairs or curtains or whatever, it's not really in your DNA to kind of do media optimization. You're not going to hire a bunch of Israeli ad network optimizers, are you, to do your job? So,
no. So I like to delineate between what is actually happening and what people say is happening, right? So what is actually happening, which is a very, very good trend, is that advertisers are getting smarter about programmatic, they're getting smarter about technology, and they're saying, listen, it's not good enough to allow my agency or any service organization to own this without my knowledge of what's going on. And so they're taking ownership of their data, they're seeing technology companies, in some cases they're taking on contracts with technology companies, That's all very, very good, and I think we would encourage that. I know we would encourage it. What's not happening, but there are countless articles about it, is large global advertisers in housing programmatic. It is not happening. And you can say it all you want, and you can sit up on stage and say, we're running a programmatic trading desk within, insert large global advertiser here, but it's absolutely not happening. And it's for all the reasons you said. This is very, very difficult. I mean, we've built an organization of 900 people over the course of 6 or 7 years, and you know what these people do all day. They worry about viewability. They worry about fraud. They worry about multiple technologies, multiple DMPs, multiple sources of inventory. And then all of that is multiplied by channel, and then it's multiplied again by major media market. So doing this in China is a lot different than doing it in the US or London or Germany. So I'm very doubtful that large global brands will run trading desks in-house. Having said that, I think a few will figure it out. They'll be e-commerce driven or data driven global advertisers, and they'll figure it out, and that's very good. And over time, I think that they will, these large global advertisers will come to realize that the agencies should be doing these things. This is what agencies do. And somebody said it earlier, in fact, I think you said it, Kieran. Agencies have driven so much innovation already, and it's all sort of getting pushed aside because of this transparency debate, which I don't think is accurate. But however, as advertisers get educated, they will realize that that's actually not the issue. The issue is how complicated this is and that they need help. And
I would say that they have the choice. They can either use you or not use you. That's what I say to people like
I think honestly, you read these articles and you would think that advertisers are these kind of lost lambs that are, they've lost the herd and they're all on their own. But, they just have to have a conversation with their agency. It's really not difficult.
Pick up the phone. You're not a wolf, by the way. No, you're a shepherd. That's
I'm
what
a shepherd. I'm definitely a shepherd. But it's, pick up the phone, have a conversation. It's just, there's a lot of rhetoric. And, your friends at Ad Exchange are, powering a lot of that discussion about clients should be taking it in-house. And I said, I'm sorry to promote my own blog on stage, but I wrote an article about this.
Where, like you, Mark.
Unlike me, where, but in that blog, I was, my point was, go on then. It's like, if I didn't want to get sacked, I'm like, go on, just do it then. But do it properly. I think what's frustrating is the headlines are normally based, as Brian says, on advertisers who are frankly, they're just maybe not using their agency, but they're using a managed service, they're using a DSP, or they're using, and that's just very different, and it's not helpful to the industry because I think it's distracting from the fact that advertisers could be really maximizing and actually buying media properly for the first time.
I mean, I'd add to that point. I mean, from a global perspective, it's just impossible because you've got so many different markets, so many different media partners. It's just absolutely, the trading deals required, it's completely...
I'll tell you what's gotten much easier is using a DSP to retarget display ads using first-party data. And in many cases, that's what we hear about when we hear clients are in-housing their programmatic. But, as anybody that's been in this industry knows, that's sort of like the very, very basic of what is possible with programmatic, and it gets much more complicated after that.
That segues nicely into my next question, because a lot of the initial programmatic growth has been around display retargeting. We've seen huge sort of breakout companies like Criteo and Rockefield to a certain extent, but they're obviously flailing now, and their stock price is on the wane. But it's like, there's a value prop around you guys exist around pushing the narrative beyond retargeting into TV, into digital out of home, into these areas. Is that kind of an area Xaxis obviously has Xaxis TV, but is that where you see sort of you guys evolving the narrative around this stuff, particularly to clients?
Yes. So I'm sorry, I'll go first, but yes, we founded Xaxis in 2011. It was 80% a display company. Today, it's 50% a video company. And, for the first time this year, you're seeing, in terms of global growth, you're seeing display go backwards, where video continues to grow. So I think video is the best first example we have of the power of what programmatic can mean for brand advertising. I think mobile, Facebook has done an amazing job in mobile. And, whenever I'm asked, how did Facebook do it? They weren't selling mobile, they were selling Facebook. And people happen to use Facebook on a mobile device. Very similar to how we excelled in video. We stopped selling video, we started selling the ability to generate incremental reach and frequency efficiently in conjunction with TV. So I think, to your point, Kieran, programmatic is not retargeted display. That's sort of, it's very valuable, but it's a very, very narrow part of the market. The opportunity for us to work with advertisers is to push into video, to push into out-of-home, radio, TV. I do believe that all media will be eventually addressable, and all addressable will be traded programmatically. So that's the promise.
Marco.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to say the same stuff because we're both firm believers in how programmatic is shaping this space. I think we are likely to, as a group, look at the sort of joint resources of the agencies plus us and a sort of central VVQ role, because if you want to get into the TV space and so on, you really need the clout, to be at the heart of the spend, and that's where we want to join up the VVQ exchange, which is group trading, not as in programmatic exchange, with the data side of stuff. So, SMG are doing some interesting stuff around the addressable TV market and the linear TV market. I think anything to do with video is really a debate about, how far can we push broadcasters to release their inventory into programmatic. And it varies by country. We've made great strides in France, where they're now trading with us programmatically. It's tougher in other markets. But that's just going to evolve, I think, over time, the VOD side of it, if you like. And then the linear TV stuff really is going to come down to, group pressure on broadcasters to really look at how they're doing things.
Okay, we've got 5 minutes left, so if there's any questions from the audience about the future of the agency media optimization approach, put your hand up now. If you're happy with the agencies, put your hands down. This gentleman here.
Hi, quick question for you on Xaxis, which is you partnered with AppNexus on the DMP because that's, as you said, more sort of strategic to AppNexus. And, do you think the DMP is going to go down that way, or you said you invested in the DMP piece, but why not outsource the DMP as well?
Yeah, there's a couple of reasons we built our own. So I don't think it will. A couple of reasons we built our own. The first and most important is that we see it as the most important component of the ad tech stack. Our benefit as Xaxis comes from having very good trading relationships with publishers, where we can gain access to high quality inventory, data at competitive prices, having great people, having great technology partners, but more than anything, it's the data that we can gather and create segments from. So we built it ourselves. The other thing is there aren't that many DMPs on the market. I would say that that's a relatively underdeveloped part of the ad tech sort of ecosystem. There's a few, they're good.
Why is that? Just curious.
Well, I think it's hard. I also think there's multiple uses for a DMP. For example, Turbine, we would never license Turbine. It's not meant to be for publishers or for advertisers. It's for our use. I think it's an incredibly difficult business. The reason why you see so many ad tech companies that claim to be technology companies when in fact their business model is selling media is because licensing technology and staying abreast of the market and staying competitive is extremely difficult. And I think that's particularly true of DMPs.
So it's difficult to kind of build a SaaS model in ad tech because it's just, because media is there and it's almost, it's a profit center taking a position in the media effectively.
Well, it's a function of how these companies are financed, and they're financed by venture capitalists who want big multiples, either through a private exit or an IPO. I think it's possible, but coming back to my scale point, the only companies that will actually succeed as technology licensing companies are companies that succeed at massive scale. You need scale in that business in order to continue to make the proper investments. I mean, if you're on the Lumascape and you have a small piece of functionality and you're trying to license that as a technology, you're in trouble, and you're looking for an exit right now.
Yeah. Okay. On that note, thank you very much, Brian, Marco. Round of applause for our panelists.
Thank you.